Hello, everyone. My name is Jeremy Coburn, and I'm going to be doing a presentation and speech on faith and happiness. So, obviously, I'm going to be talking about a lot of different things, including COVID 19. But the big objective in this whole video is going to be talking about how faith and happiness are correlated together. So, my first thing that I'm going to talk about is how faith has strengthened me and can strengthen you. So, I'm going to use a lot of personal experience when it comes to these. So, in my life, I've had a lot of ups and downs, and a lot of tragedies, and a lot of very unfortunate events that have taken place in my life. The first one, I mean, I could say when I was a young boy that I had to experience a lot of hatred. I had to, when I first started going to school, you know, I remember when I was a young boy, I always hoped that, as a kid, that, when I was about, I would say 2, 3, 4, and I was learning about socializing, as a young boy, watching TV shows and seeing how the characters interacted with each other. So I thought that was reality. I thought that's how normal human interaction was. That's what I thought it was. But then I went to school at Lakevale Elementary, and my first experience with human interaction was terrible. I can remember being pushed around, being screamed at, and I didn't understand why. Why? Why? What was it about me that people didn't like? So that was the first thing that really hurt me. And, I think it pretty much put a halt in my human interaction. And so as I grew up, that would be probably the first thing that happened in my life. Now, of course, this was before I became a Christian. I was only a little boy. So, how could I understand what faith truly is? But I'm just going to link this into everything, and then it should tie into what I'm talking about. Then, my real experience with dealing with tragic tragedy, would be when I lost my grandfather. I lost my grandfather when I was age 15, entering my first year of high school. And my grandfather was like a second father. He was an amazing human being. He served 30 years in the Air Force. He was just everything to me. We would go to breakfast together. He would teach me to play football. Not really football, but he would teach me to throw the football. And he just did a lot of things for me. And he was a great male influence right off the hop. And then, of course, my heart was shattered. I can still remember, my dad coming to my door and saying, Gramps is not going to make it. My grandfather had he had scar tissue building around his lungs from from serving in the Air Force. He obviously, there was a lot of scar tissue that was building up from breathing in asbestos. And so right off the hop, there was nothing they could do. And it was like right off the hop, my heart was crushed. The first real feeling that I had for loss, I just couldn't describe. I couldn't describe the feeling. It was just like my heart was torn. I couldn't believe that my best friend, because that's really what he was like a second father. It was like he was taken from me. And of course, that's right off the hop. Even then, I really didn't understand my faith. I remember when I was a little boy, and I can still remember my grandmother taking me to church, and she was a very dedicated churchgoer and one of the best human beings that I know. And I'm not just saying that because she was my grandmother. She was someone that lived her life by her faith. She was someone that believed just because someone wronged you didn't mean you have to do it back. Everyone would call her the devil's advocate. She was someone that could see the good in everybody. And, obviously that's going to link into what I'm going to talk about after. But there's one other thing that I want to talk about going after my grandfather. So obviously, yeah, losing my grandfather was a very tough time. And I think that was probably the first domino, really. I mean, bullying was first, but this was like the first. When I was 15, I could comprehend everything. And I feel like this was the first domino that I was able to understand what suffering truly was. So then anyway, going into my 18th year, alive, my 18th birthday. And this happened right after my birthday. And 18 is when you're coming into adulthood. This is when you are going to decide where you're going to go and things like that. And of course, what happened is I suffered a concussion. And obviously, after suffering a concussion, I then go back into the net because I was playing floor hockey. I don't really want to go too long because the video would be too long if I did that. But just short story is I was playing floor hockey. I was playing goaltender, got hit. Obviously sat out for a little while, but I wasn't 100%. Went back in the net, got hit again, and now I still have persistent symptoms. So I feel like I'm doing very well, but my memory sometimes isn't the best. Sometimes I have fogginess. I have 24/7 tension headaches. So I feel like I've done a good job dealing with these symptoms, but it is frustrating. And of course, I'm hoping one day to go to a clinic. I'm not going to say their name, but I hope one day to go to their clinic and get treated. Obviously, right now, everything is shut down because of COVID-19, and we'll go into that later. And of course, the last thing that has really hurt me has been losing my grandmother. I lost her last year, May 7th. She suffered a stroke in March, and I think it was March 5th. She suffered a stroke, and that was tough. And the one thing that I really want to emphasize without really going into more, because I've really talked a lot about my short life so far, and one thing that I want people to understand is faith helps you see the bigger picture in life. You begin to have an understanding that everything happens for a reason. So I think that's one thing that, there is this correlation between faith and happiness, and understand that everything happens for a reason. So now we're going to go into the next point. So the big thing is I'm going to then link now tragedy, suffering, and link it together. So big thing would be is 4 reasons for suffering, okay? And some of these are ones that I found. These are ones that I also put in my own perspective, but I'm also going to give credit for the inspirations because you have to. So obviously the first one is suffering to create a better you. Now that's how I phrased it, but this would be from T.D. Jakes' book. He's a minister, worldwide known, and he wrote a book called Crushing, and it's called God Turns Pressure into Power. And pretty much in the book, he just talks about how, we're, when we go through suffering, it's like we are the grape. We are being crushed. And the reason we are being crushed is because God is going to turn us into his finest wine. And that's the whole point, is we go through this process that we have to go through. And it's a crushing process. It's like the grape being crushed. And that is the whole point of it. So the big thing is when we're crushed, in the moment, we're just like, we're down. We don't know what to think. But one thing it does is it helps create a better you. It strengthens you. It makes you better. And that's the whole point behind suffering to create a better you. Next, number 2, suffering to create humility. So my own experience, I'm going to use off this. So one thing that I've learned from my suffering is that it has created humility. I no longer worry about the bigger things in life, or the small things in life. So for example, there's a lot of people that I know. My sister works in fast food, and she's always telling me how people are complaining about something wrong on a burger. Now, see, that's a very small, trivial thing. So I wouldn't worry about something like that because of my suffering. I become humble. It's taught me humility to understand that there are bigger things in life than getting something wrong on your burger or getting the wrong burger. Of course, in the moment, you're probably not that thrilled, but it is something that it teaches us that there is bigger things in life and that we need to be humble about those things. Next, suffering to test and strengthen faith. So I'm going to use 2 experiences, 2 from the Bible. Obviously, Abraham and Job. And if you're not a person that reads the Bible, pretty much Abraham is he is in the beginning, but he is really where people, the father of the nations and all that. And Abraham, pretty much, he follows God and does everything God wants him to do. But then, even his family's questioning him and think he's a little up there. And then anyway, he, back before Jesus died, before he was the sacrificial lamb, you had to sacrifice lambs as a sacrifice. So Abraham is asked by God to sacrifice his son Isaac. Everyone would think, what kind of God would do such a thing? But see, God's intention wasn't for Isaac to be sacrificed, and just so you know, he doesn't get killed, but it's to test his faith. So God asks Abraham to kill his son Isaac. And so then he takes him up to the mountain, and he is about to do that. And right before he's about to take the knife, he says, forgive me, to his son. And right before he does it, God provides the sacrificial lamb for the sacrifice. So then that was the intention. But God wanted to see if, Abraham would carry that through. Now, I got to keep moving because my video is supposed to be only 10 minutes long, but it's right now 10:09. So it will probably be a few minutes over. Going next, Job. He was in the Bible, a man that just devotedly served God. But then the devil pretty much asked God if he could tempt Job, because he said, the only reason Job is following you is because you're giving him everything. So he tempted him, took things away from him. But by the end of it, Job, did question, but he never, ever was upset with God. And God just said, I was testing your faith. And of course, the last but not least that I'm going to talk about is suffering, because we live in a fallen world. And so simply from a biblical standpoint, we believe that suffering happens because of Adam and Eve, the first two human beings on the earth. And we believe that, when Eve was tricked by the snake and took the bite of the apple, and then Adam followed suit, then that's pretty much what we believe. We believe that the fallen world, the original sin, and that human beings sin, this is what continues to create suffering. But it's all for a purpose, and of course, they all are interconnected. And now I'm going to close up by dealing with COVID-19. And this is, again, what faith and happiness, how it all ties together. So I know that I really haven't talked too much about faith and happiness, but I'm going to kind of link that together right now. So pretty much like in times like this right now, where we're dealing with a lot of, people dying, a lot of people getting sick, and COVID-19, the whole point of faith is that we believe, people that we believe, that the people that believe in God, and I'm not just going to say the Christian God, but I would say the Christian God for me, we believe that God is watching over us, God is with us, and that everything is happening for a reason, even all the deaths, all the sicknesses, everything. But God is with us, and it's all about that faith, all about that happiness. And so right now everyone's worrying, everyone is stressed out. But one thing that I want people to understand is that is what faith and happiness is all about. Right now, because we have faith, it can tie into that happiness. And that's what it is all about, tying faith and happiness. And that's really what it is. So I would say that, am I a happier person because of my faith? Of course, because I can tie God into it. And so that's how I'm going to wrap up my video, is to tell people that there is a correlation between faith and happiness. And yes, you can be an atheist and be happy. But the thing is, I want to really stress this, and I don't want to be a biblical person here, but I'm going to state this. In the Bible, Jesus says, what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world but loses his soul? And that's the whole objective, is that we're all going to die one day. But the thing is where is your hope when the doctors tell you that there is no hope for you? And that's what I want people to understand, is that I don't fear death. I don't fear any of that, because I have faith in God, and I know God's got my back. So anyway, folks, I'm going to wrap up. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope that I did tie somewhat in this very short video about faith and happiness, and how there is pretty much how faith gives us purpose, how faith gives us reason. And yes, there's a lot of scientists that will say, no, it doesn't. But science, I do believe in science too, but I believe that science is just this understanding of God and understanding his laws. And God has given us the ability to cure things through his knowledge. So anyway, folks, thank you for listening, and I hope everyone has a great rest of their day, and I hope everyone stays safe out there. God bless you.